Welcome to our show, College Briefing, where we dive into the day's most intriguing stories with a light touch and a keen eye. Let's get into it, shall we? First up, we've got a study that's causing quite the stir in the health world. It turns out that intermittent fasting, the diet trend that's had everyone skipping breakfast, and then some, might not be the heart-friendly regimen we thought it was. A new study presented at a medical meeting suggests that chowing down within just an 8-hour window could hike up the risk of heart disease death by a whopping 91%. Talk about a surprise. But before you toss your fasting app out the window, keep in mind that some doctors are scratching their heads over these findings, wondering if there's more to the story. Switching gears to a topic that's been making headlines, medication abortions now account for 63% of all abortions in the U.S. as of 2023, according to a study by the Guttmacher Institute. This comes after the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, indicating a significant shift in how abortions are carried out. Meanwhile, down under in Broken Hill, New South Wales, a high school is set for a dramatic makeover due to a severe mold infestation. And over at the Yuba Community College District in California, they're swapping out their police force for a non-commissioned security team, aiming for a safer and more efficient approach to campus security. Lastly, would you consider python for dinner? A study suggests that python meat is an efficient and eco-friendly source of nutrition, comparing its taste to chicken but with a leaner profile. In other news, an Oregon man has been found guilty in a 1980 cold case, thanks to DNA technology, and Uber is paying a hefty sum to settle a class action lawsuit in Australia, raising questions about its future operations. So, whether it's the unexpected twists in health studies, the evolving landscape of abortion access in the US, or the curious case for python as a dinner option, there's never a dull moment in the news. Please stay tuned for more detailed content on these stories and more. Intermittent fasting linked to heart risk in study surprise. South China Morning Post. Research presented at a medical meeting has raised questions about the safety of intermittent fasting, a popular weight loss strategy. The study found that limiting mealtimes to just 8 hours a day was associated with a 91% increase in the risk of death from heart disease. The American Heart Association published only an abstract of the study, leaving scientists speculating about the details of the research protocol. Some doctors have questioned the findings, suggesting that differences between the fasting patients and the comparison group may have skewed the results. The study analyzed data from approximately 20,000 adults included in the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. Medication abortion accounted for 63% of U.S. abortions in 2023, new study finds. Yahoo! Medication abortions accounted for 63% of all abortions in the U.S. in 2023, according to a study by the Guttmacher Institute. The study found that 642,700 medication abortions took place within the healthcare system in the first full year following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade in July 2022. In comparison, medication abortions accounted for 53% of U.S. abortions in 2020, the study found. The study also found that there were an estimated 1,026,690 abortions in the formal U.S. healthcare system in 2023, a 10% increase from 2020. Broken Hill High School to be torn down and rebuilt after mold infestation. ABC. Williama High School in Broken Hill, New South Wales, will be demolished and rebuilt after a severe mold infestation was discovered. An independent hygienist report found that the mold issue was so extreme that the building would have to be stripped down to its bricks to be safe again. The report also found routine carpet cleaning, a lack of natural ventilation, and overcrowding and inadequate storage facilities as likely causes of the outbreak. The school will be temporarily relocated to Broken Hill High School while the rebuilding takes place. The New South Wales Education Department has assured staff and students that the government is committed to a full rebuild. Dysfunctional, ineffective, and inefficient, YCCD to replace police force with non-commissioned security. Yahoo! The Yuba Community College District in California is to replace its police department with a security force to improve safety and security. The move will result in 3 police officers losing their jobs. A safety and security assessment recommended instituting a new campus safety and risk management program that could be supplemented by contracted local sworn police officers as required. The report also noted that the college's safety program was dysfunctional, ineffective, and inefficient. Officials said the vast majority of incidents on campus did not require police intervention. Python found to be the most efficient form of livestock ever studied, so would you eat snake for dinner? ABC. A recent study suggests that python snake meat could be an efficient and environmentally friendly source of nutrition. The study found that pythons are more efficient at processing food and allocating energy than other livestock animals. They can survive for long periods without food and continue to grow. Additionally, python meat is described as lean and low in fat, with a taste similar to chicken. While there is currently limited demand for snake meat, some butchers are open to selling it if a market emerges. Oregon man found guilty of murder in 1980 cold case of college student after DNA link. Associated Press. Robert Plimpton, a man living in Portland, Oregon, has been found guilty of first-degree murder in the 1980 cold case murder of college student Barbara Mae Tucker. Plimpton was not convicted of rape or sexual abuse due to lack of evidence, but a medical examiner determined that Tucker had been sexually assaulted and beaten to death. DNA technology linked Plimpton to the crime in 2021, and physical evidence from the scene led investigators to him. Plimpton is scheduled to be sentenced in June. Uber is paying the price for cowboy behavior. So what's next for the tech giant as pressure mounts on it to clean up its act? ABC. Uber has agreed to pay $272 million Australian dollars, $200 million, to settle a class action lawsuit brought by more than 8,000 Australian taxi and hire car owners. The case, which was filed in 2019, is now the fifth largest settlement in Australian history. The lawsuit accused Uber of operating illegally and causing significant damage to the taxi industry. Uber skirted licensing rules in Australia when it launched, leading to accusations of operating in a Wild West manner. Although the settlement is being seen as a victory for accountability, there are still calls for further regulation to ensure that Uber operates fairly in all areas. Uber drivers are currently classified as self-employed, meaning that they are not entitled to many of the benefits and protections that employees receive. The Australian government has announced plans to introduce new tests to determine whether drivers should be classified as employees, which could give them more rights. Rules that help set real estate agent commissions are changing. Here's what you need to know. The Toronto Star. The National Association of Realtors, NAR, has agreed to make policy changes in order to settle multiple class action lawsuits filed by home sellers. The changes aim to address the assertion that sellers are made to pay artificially inflated agent commissions. The NAR has agreed to change its rules so that brokers listing a home for sale on any of the databases affiliated with the NAR can no longer include offers of compensation for a buyer's agent. It also agreed to require agents or others working with a homebuyer to enter into a written agreement with them. The NAR will implement the rule changes if the court approves the settlement. Meanwhile, several real estate brokerage operators, including Anywhere Real Estate and Keller Williams, have reached separate settlement agreements that include provisions for more transparency about agent commissions for homebuyers and sellers. The key potential change centers on who pays the bill for real estate agents who represent homebuyers. Chinese professor at Japan University missing after visiting homeland. Japan Times. A Chinese professor at Kobe Gakuin University in Japan has gone missing after visiting China last summer, sparking fears that he has been detained by Chinese authorities. Hu Shiyun, a professor of Chinese language, became unreachable after arriving in China last August. His family has not heard from him since then. The university has requested information about his safety from the Chinese Consulate General in Osaka, but has not yet received a response. Can a new South Korea-Japan agreement take bilateral ties to the next level? South China Morning Post. South Korea is reportedly seeking to improve ties with Japan to mark the 60th anniversary of the two countries resuming diplomatic relations. South Korea's President, Yoon Suk-yeol, hopes to visit Japan and build on the 1998 Japan-Republic of Korea Joint Declaration, which outlined a future-oriented relationship between the two nations. However, analysts caution that Japan remains wary of any new agreement due to concerns that it could be renegotiated or annulled by a future administration, as happened with the Japan-South Korea Comfort Women Agreement in 2019. Mutual political confidence is seen as critical to the future of the relationship. The Goldilocks solution to Sydney's housing crisis. The Sydney Morning Herald. More than half of apartment buyers in Sydney prefer to live in smaller blocks, according to research conducted by the City Futures Research Centre at the University of NSW. The study also found that only 16% of buyers wanted to live in high-rise buildings. The findings support proposals by the NSW government to change zoning laws to allow for more medium-density housing in established suburbs. The government's plan for low and mid-rise housing within 400 meters of 31 railway stations would create more diverse housing options for people of all ages and incomes. A new study raises concerns about intermittent fasting and a higher risk of death. Here's why experts aren't worried. Yahoo! People who intermittently fast by eating within an 8-hour period every day may face a 91% higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease, according to a study presented at an American Heart Association meeting. Intermittent fasting has become increasingly popular due to its connection to weight loss, improvements in blood pressure and blood sugar levels, and longevity. However, the new study suggests that this form of dieting could be harmful in the long term. Many experts have pointed out the study's limitations, however, and say that more research is needed to make any definitive conclusions about the dangers of intermittent fasting. Climate disclosures: region needs more education, best practices exchange. South China Morning Post. Companies in the Asia-Pacific region will need education, cooperation with suppliers and exchanges of best practices to meet tightening climate disclosure requirements. Climate disclosures are becoming mandatory for companies across the globe, and firms will need guidance on properly disclosing their carbon footprints in line with the classification framework developed by the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, GHGP, which forms the basis for all existing standards for calculating emissions, said Alexander Bassin, the inaugural chair of the Independent Standards Board, the GHGP's decision-making body tasked with approving and improving the protocol standards and guidance documents. U.S. study finds no evidence of brain injury in cases of mysterious Havana syndrome. ABC. Researchers from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, in the U.S. have published a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association that found no significant evidence of brain injury among a group of federal employees reporting symptoms of the Havana syndrome. The study involved 86 employees and their family members, who reported symptoms such as headaches, migraines, dizziness, and memory lapses. The researchers used rigorous MRI imaging protocols and a closely matched control group to ensure the accuracy of their findings. The study did find that some patients developed a chronic condition called persistent postural perceptual dizziness and reported increased symptoms of fatigue, post-traumatic stress, and depression. The researchers concluded that an outside event could not be ruled out as the cause of the symptoms. Supreme Court hears free speech case that united the NRA and the ACLU. Washington Post. The Supreme Court has heard arguments in a case in which the National Rifle Association, NRA, accused a former New York State official of improperly pressuring banks and insurers to cut ties with the gun rights group after the Parkland High School massacre in 2018. The case could have significant implications for free speech and how government officials weigh in on contentious topics. The NRA argued that the official took aim at the group for its speech, violating the First Amendment, while the official countered that she was acting properly in enforcing the law and expressing her policy views. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.